Okay. At 6:31 p.m., I'd like to call this meeting of the Co-op Budget Committee to order. We are operating at 100% on Zoom, which we are allowed to do under Emergency Order 12 related to Executive Order 2020-04 related to emergency and pandemic items that allow us to meet in this electronic format. We, as I mentioned, all members and those participating are doing so via Zoom. No one is located at our normal meeting place at the Hollis Brookline Middle School Library, but the meeting is being recorded. It will be converted. Zoom goes through a conversion at the end of the meeting, and I'll be submitting it to Rich Raymond for posting tomorrow. So with that said, in following with the COVID protocols, I'll ask those present and participating to introduce themselves, say why they're participating in this format, where they're participating from, stating that you are alone or who's near you, and that you can hear the proceedings. So Tom?
Tom Enright, I'm by myself. I'm participating remotely for COVID reasons. What else?
From your home, it looks like.
From my home, yes.
Okay, great. Brian?
Yes, Brian Rader. I am participating remotely due to COVID. I am at my home on Mason Road in Brookline. I am the only person in the room. Brendan is elsewhere in the house, and I can hear the proceedings fine.
Great, thank you. Cindy?
I am Cindy Van Kona, the school board rep on the budget committee, and I am home alone, and I am due to COVID restrictions.
Matt?
And I can hear the proceeding.
Thanks, Cindy. Matt?
Matt McGuire, I can hear the proceedings. I am working from home due to COVID. I am by myself in my home office, but not by myself in the house.
Great. Raul?
Raul Blanchet, I'm working from home due to COVID. My family members are in the other rooms in the house. I'm by myself here in the dining room, and I can hear the proceedings very well. Thank you.
Great. Lauren?
Yeah, Lauren Ridstrom, I'm home alone due to COVID. I'm participating in this fashion, and I'm alone. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. My name is Darlene Van. I'm participating from my home office due to COVID. I can hear the proceedings. I'm alone in the office, but not alone in my home. And I'd like to also introduce Kelly Seeley, our business administrator, who, Kelly, you can introduce yourself as well.
I am participating from home due to COVID reasons, and I can hear everything, and I'm alone in my office, but there are other people in the house.
Great, thank you. Dave Flynn is absent this evening with an excused absence. And I'd like to also make a statement that this meeting, while not on our normally scheduled fourth week of the month, will represent our February meeting. We moved it up into this time frame for a couple of reasons. Primarily because there was a deadline to submitting the MS-27 with the recommendations of the budget committee and the school board. The school board finished all of their recommendations last night after hearing the petition, the public hearing, the main warrant articles at last week's public hearing, and then following up with 4 petition articles at last night's meeting. Just admitting an observer. And so I've called this meeting because while we, as a budget committee, are required to take positions on any article that appropriates funding, we are not precluded by law from taking positions on other articles. And in this case, with some of the petition articles that are put forward, they've been put forward before. We have taken positions on them before, and I personally feel that they have sometimes financial ramifications, that while an appropriation isn't specifically stated by the article itself, there are ramifications and things that we would be impacted by as a budget committee. So with that in mind, we're here this evening, and I'll ask those of you, we'll go through the remaining petition articles and have a discussion and move forward with recommendations. If I'll leave it to the budget committee as a majority, where they feel like it's important that we make a recommendation and put that forward. I do also want to point out that at last week's public hearing, I was working off of a summary chart at the end of the presentation that listed those articles that appropriate. And there was one article that I overlooked, which was Article 5, which is, I'm pulling it up here, it was related to the athletics expendable trust. And how do I show my screen? Oh boy, I have to find it. Hold on. Okay, not going to do that. Hold on. Let's go here. I have to try to, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Hold on a minute. Let me find, anyway, Article 5 is to discontinue the athletic expendable trust. So this was related, and the Articles 5 and 6 are related. One was to discontinue the existing expendable trust that we have. Article 6 was to establish the revolving fund. So we took the position on establishing the revolving fund, but I'd like to go back and take a position on discontinuing the athletics expendable trust. So the article reads, shall the school district vote to discontinue the athletic expendable trust fund? Said funds and accumulated interest to date of withdrawal are to be transferred to the school district's general fund. Majority vote required. So at this point, I'll take a motion to recommend Article 5 as written for the for discontinuing the athletics expendable trust.
So moved.
Moved by Cindy, seconded by
Second.
Raul. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we do have to have, now I hear the echoing you're talking about, Raul. Let me take my volume down a little bit. We have to have a roll call vote since we are participating electronically, and I just want to write down everybody's names and it'll make it go quicker when we all cast votes. Okay, so the motion is to recommend Article 5 to discontinue the athletics trust fund. Raul? Can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Tom?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And Darlene votes yes. Thank you. So that's 7 0 0. Okay.
Darlene,
Mhm.
can I just, so last night when we voted on it, we did vote on it, but there was a question on what happens if 5 doesn't pass. And we discussed it. We thought that it goes just into the regular general fund. And then we would have to have a public hearing to take that money out. Was that correct?
So you're saying if 5 didn't pass, so if we didn't discontinue the current expendable trust fund?
If 5 passed and 6 didn't, to
Oh,
create
if
the
5
new.
passes and 6 didn't, yes, then the money would just go to the general fund.
Okay, that's what we thought, but I wanted to clarify that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So moving on to the we had discussed one petition article at our last public hearing. So there are 4 other petition warrant articles. I believe the first one that was discussed, just to give everybody the framework, last night, the school board did hold a public hearing, the first of its 2 public hearings. The other one is taking place now. The public hearing itself lasted pretty close to 3 hours, listening to input across all 4 of the articles, individually opening and closing each one. And after the public hearing was closed, the school board took positions on all of the articles in the warrant. I believe Cindy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, everything was recommended except for the anti-discrimination petition article? Is that the
And
case?
SB2.
And SB2, okay.
Also, the tax cap was not recommended.
The tax cap was not
Yeah.
recommended and change, oh, and I'm sorry, all right, let me rephrase that. All articles put forward
Right.
on the warrant, the school board articles were recommended.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And so the petition articles, so the first one was the one at our public hearing last week, which was to put the tax impacts on the warrant. Cindy, do you recall if they recommended that?
They did not.
They did not.
Mainly
Okay, so-
because they didn't feel like that the actual data would be there when the warrants went out,
Mhm.
especially if it was a contract year or something. So they said no.
Okay, so they said no on the tax impacts on the warrant, no on the tax cap, no on SB2, no on the change to the articles of agreement, and no on the anti-discrimination petition. Okay, so petitions were all no. Okay.
Just so
So-
you know, though, the articles of agreement is still up for discussion. They want it to go back to the lawyer and ask if that had to go on at all.
Oh,
Um,
okay,
So we're that one we did not really settle last night.
okay. Okay, so we'll keep track of that. I think we all saw an agenda for a meeting next week, so I guess that's what you'll be addressing. So with all that in mind, we can go through the 4 remaining petitions. We can start with the tax cap. So I would take a motion to recommend the petition article, which adopts a tax cap of 4%.
So moved.
Moved by Lauren, seconded by
Second.
By Tom.
Tom. We'll take Tom on this one. Okay, so discussion on this one. Anyone like to have any input? I'll have a little bit of input, if you don't mind. I have spoken against and not recommending a tax cap the 2 or 3 other times that it's been brought forward. I don't think it is a solution for this district. And I think that the process that we have now allows for us as a budget committee to work on the budget over an extended period of time and carefully evaluate all of the inputs to the process to what gets us to the budget that we recommend every year. And what this tax cap does is actually limit the budget committee's ability, in my opinion, to do that work, because it would in some ways change our process and reverse it, because we would be working backwards. The way we work now is to provide guidance and understand the components and things that develop and evolve into the budget. And the tax impact itself is a byproduct and driven by a lot of, in several cases, things that are not related to the budget itself. So for that and many other reasons, I think it's too limiting for our community. And I think we, as just this group that's been together for a long time, but the budget committee in general, has done really an excellent job at managing through guidance and evaluation of the budget, truly managing the budget increases and being able to explain to the communities the impacts, why the tax rates are what they are, how they get there, and what's driving them. And I think that the current process that we have enables us and allows us to do that. And we share that information at the public hearing. We share it at the annual meeting. I think it's good information if people are willing to listen and really try to understand it, that it really kind of helps explain how we end up where we end up every year. I don't know if anyone else has any other comments.
I'd like to add a comment as perspective from Brookline, from the perspective also of the Finance Committee. We have a tax cap and it is causing a problem for us this year because last year the state legislature, mostly because last year the state legislature provided a significant increase in support for education, which significantly lowered our tax rates in Brookline. But this year, we don't know whether or not the current legislature is going to continue with that or not. But because the revenue side of it affects the tax rate, we're now having to make cuts in the budget under the anticipation that the current legislature may not be as supportive of funding public education as the previous one did. That's an effect of the tax cap. And it really doesn't make any sense. We've been much more consistent with the budget itself.
And I would just like to add on too, and I mentioned it being a limiting thing because what the statute actually says is the budget committee could not put forward a budget, has to recommend a budget that does not result in a tax effort greater than 4% of the prior year that's adjusted for the unreserved fund balance. It does not mean the budget can't be amended. The upward limitation on a budget is still the 10% rule. So the school board or members of the school board, because there's citizens and members of the legislative body, could come forward and make a recommendation that the budget be higher for, and stipulate its reasons. And members of the community in the legislative body can do that as well. So it really is just a limitation on what the budget committee can put forward. And to Brian's point, it really, I don't even know how long I've been on the budget committee. It's been a long time, but we've never, ever had a year where we saw one community in the co-op, Brookline specifically, losing in total $1.3 million of state aid, 750,000 of it on the co-op side, combined with the money that got returned to the taxpayers last year of over $1 million just from the co-op because of savings related to the school closure in the spring related to the pandemic. So those two things combined that aren't happening are having the combined, they have the largest effect on the tax rate going forward as we put forward the estimates. And as Brian said, Brookline School District has had, because of their tax cap, has had to make some operational changes and adjustments to their budget. But by the time, maybe not by the time they vote in March, but by the time we might hold an annual meeting in April or May, the legislator may have had a resolution to this. There is legislation out there that would restore funding for the next 2 years at last year's level, not less than not less than the current level. So, and that would be in place for 2 years. So again, that's something that could change by the time we vote on the budget and the co-op for this year. And that would significantly shift what the estimates are for the tax rates. Anyone else?
Well, Darlene, I was just also going to say that more and more, it seems like there are more budget line items that seem to be out of the control of the district. And so having a tax cap would really create a lot of problems and take flexibility away from our management of the budget. So I'm opposed to the proposal.
Okay, any more comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the roll on the recommending the tax cap. So Raul?
I don't recommend the tax cap.
Okay, you're no. Tom?
No.
Matt?
No.
Lauren?
No.
Cindy?
No.
Brian?
No.
And Darlene votes no. Okay, so it's a 0. So we're not recommending the tax cap. The next petition article is on adopting SB2. And so we all know that, so what I'll do is take a motion for the budget committee to recommend adoption of SB2 for the co-op.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Lauren, seconded by Tom. Discussion? Okay, seeing none, I think by now we've all heard our own opinions on this for probably 5 or 6 years now, because I think that's how many times it's come before us, is this group as a petition warrant article. So we all know what it does. It moves us from our annual town meeting, which has a public hearing and in-person annual meeting to SB2, shifts our original meeting back. I think it would shift the calendar by a month. There's, I think the first session is in January, Kelly, and then there's a deliberative session, and then it moves to the ballot vote with the town election in March. So is there any discussion on this? All right, seeing none, we'll move right along. I'll call the roll. Raul,
I don't support the proposal, the warrant.
okay. Tom,
No.
Matt,
No.
Lauren,
No.
Cindy,
No.
Brian. Brian, you were muted.
Sorry, no.
Okay, and Darlene votes no. Okay, great. Moving on to the third one. So the Budget Committee is not recommending adoption of SB2 by a vote of 0-7. For the next one is a change to the Articles of Agreement, which would amend one of the articles so that the district was, instead of being a 7 to 12 district, it would be a grade 9 to 12 district. So I'll take a motion to recommend the change to the Articles of Agreement
So moved.
from Cindy, seconded by
Second.
Tom. Okay, so this article would, if I sent everyone the Articles of Agreement as part of our meeting, our meeting materials, so that you can see the kind of breakdown on what happens if something like this were recommended. There would officially be a committee that's formed. The membership of the committee is clearly identified with members of the school board from either community, budget committees, select boards, finance committees, things like that, for them to evaluate the operational, educational, and financial aspects of a move like this. So I don't know if there's any additional discussion. Some of you may have watched the public hearing last night and heard the presentation that was made. Welcome the discussion on the topic.
Could I just have the vote of the school board? I know they didn't recommend it. Was it unanimous?
It was, Cindy?
I think it was. It was a long, and that was the very
I have
end,
a-
but I'm
You voted against, yes, it was unanimously
It
against.
was, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Thank you.
No other commentary?
I'll
Yeah.
just, Yeah.
I was just gonna say that I think this is the slippery slope toward dissolving the co-op, and I don't think that's a good idea.
my comment on this is just that splitting up the co-op this way would have significant financial impacts on both towns, negatively, in my opinion. It's pretty objectively, it would be very expensive to do this. So therefore, I think it's an appropriate thing for the budget committee to take a position on, and I'm strongly opposed to it.
Matt?
Yeah, I'm opposed to it too. I think from the Brookline perspective, splitting the grades and bringing those 2 grades back to Brookline, that would result in having to build new buildings, and it's really quickly would get expensive. And then additionally, once that happens, or if ever was to happen, I think the different courses that are available becomes less, because now you don't have the economy of scale. And so I think that from the academic point of view, there'll be less options. And then from the outside of school activities, sports and stuff like that, then, I think if that was ever to be split at the middle school level, you wouldn't even have enough kids to field any teams, or, some of those, after school, other, of the other types of activities that can that occur. So I'm strongly opposed to it.
One of the things that came up, one of the comments included in the presentation was, the availability, the low bond rate, the low financing rates for bonds right now, that it would be a good time to finance something if Brookline needed a school or to add on to their schools and whatnot. But one of the other things that was included in the presentation was a reference to building aid. There are a couple of pieces of legislation up in Concord addressing building aid. One of them would increase the annual amount to $50 million. Right now it's at an amount lower than that. And sorry, I'm hearing there's an echo, sorry.
Hey, Matt, are you muted? Why don't you mute yourself, Matt?
Yes.
But I just wanted to speak a little bit about the building aid process. The way it works, there's no district in the state that is guaranteed any amount of building aid, no matter what the level is that it's funded at. It's a very competitive process where the district, the plans, the districts of the approved plans for renovations, new schools, and things like that are rated, ranked, evaluated. There are walkthroughs of the current facilities, and you're in some pretty stiff competition across the state. And you're ranked on a number of different items, including safety. The list is just staggering in the application process in and of itself. So just the fact, to say that, well, building aid will be available. Well, it may well be available and may well be funded at a higher level, but it's a pool of money that every district in the state is going to look toward. And there's no guarantee that just because there's money there that you'll get any amount of it. You may be ranked very high on the list, but another couple projects ahead of you are higher, or cost more, and use a larger percentage of that pot of money. You may be ranked, your ranking may result in you being carried over into another year where you're then ranked against the pool of projects in that year. So it is a lengthy and detailed process. So it isn't just, I don't want anyone to think there's a foregone conclusion that if building aid is available, it means you get it. So just wanted to make that clear. I also think it would just be detrimental for all the reasons that were noted. I think that given enrollment and trends in enrollment was a significant part of the discussion on this last night, because while the co-op is seeing some reduced enrollment over based on the most recent NASDAQ projections over the next 5 years, the K-6 districts are seeing increased enrollment. And we all know all those kids eventually come to the co-op, but it was used as a reason for saying, well, we could keep those K-8 students in district because maybe in Hollis's case, they're not going to have room in their building and they would need to then move kids to the middle school building and things like that. And I had because the public hearing deck was presented earlier this week for the town of Hollis and the Hollis School District, the Hollis School District is in fact anticipating increases in its K-6 population going forward. It still remains, after the next 5 years, it still remains 84 students below the highest rate of its enrollment, which was back in 2000. So I think there is still some substantial room in the schools to be able to manage the increases that are coming. And as was pointed out, each community eventually, does have a limited availability of property to continue to build on. And I know in Hollis, we're seeing a lot of new homes being built, but I think they're really spread out over, single family homes, 55 plus housing, the workforce housing initiative and things. It's spread among a lot of different populations of people. And I think we're going to be fine as a community. So I would still support keeping the co-op as a 7 to 12 district.
One of the things that came out in the public hearing from the public that was kind of an interesting thought process was it's the 7, 8 this year. And then is it, 9, 10, then 11, 12? Like, is this a way to dissolve the starting process of dissolve by 2 classes instead of just saying they want to dissolve the co-op?
And I think there needs to be, I would even say, this comes up as a petition article, and I would really say that there's ample opportunity to address the school board on a monthly basis. You do allow public input to come to the budget committee on a monthly basis. And if it's something that is important, can be something that's evaluated by the school board and the budget committee before we get to, well, a month before our annual meeting, and it gets thrown out as a petition with 25 signatures across 2 communities, and it's something that could have a very significant impact on both. And while there is a process through the Articles of Agreement that starts a committee and whatnot, in something as big as this, I'd almost prefer to see some assessment and evaluation beforehand on whether you would even bring forward something like this. And maybe we should be using the governing model that we have for the co-op, which is a school board and a budget committee, and address your concerns to those entities rather than bringing it as a petition.
I'm going to
Any
throw
other-
out a reason that I haven't heard yet, and that is that socially, bringing the towns together in the 7th grade it works very well, and in the 9th grade would not work well at all. So I'm very much opposed to this, want to vote.
That's a great point, Tom.
I totally agree with that as well.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I will call the vote. Raul, your vote on recommending a change to the Articles of Agreement?
I do not recommend a change to the Articles of Agreement.
Okay. Tom?
Vote no.
No. Matt?
No.
Lauren?
No,
Cindy?
No.
Brian?
No.
And Darlene votes no. So the Budget Committee is not recommending a change to the Articles of Agreement by a vote of 070. Okay, the last petition warrant article that was brought forward was with regard to it was entitled an anti-discrimination resolution. Again, I shared the articles with you. I'm not sure, since this one falls a little bit outside of the purview of, tax cap calculations, SB2, Articles of Agreement, things like that. If we want to move forward with that, I'm happy to entertain it and move forward, and we can take a recommendation as a budget committee. I'm just not sure if anyone feels that it's outside of our purview. But again, happy to move forward with it and just take input on that this time.
I would think it's outside of our purview since it's not ostensibly a budget item. So I would think we should pass on that one.
I agree with you, Lauren.
Oh.
Yeah, I agree as well.
I agree as well.
I will say this about this article. I am enormously offended by this article. There's a lot in here that is just really personally very offensive. However, this being a budget committee rather than the school board, I do agree that this is outside of the realm of the budget committee. I am glad, however, the school board has taken a position on this.
Raul or Cindy?
Yeah, let me just make a comment. This is outside the budget committee process, but so is the advisory committee that's advising the school board, the administration regarding on the EEI policy. So on both counts, we either should stay out of it, or maybe we should take a position on either one. Having read the contents of this, I don't find that as offensive as Brian did, for example. We have different perspectives, different backgrounds, but because it is outside the budget process, maybe this shouldn't be included as part of this discussion. So.
Okay. Fair enough. So the sense of the budget committee is that we're not going to take a position on this. Just wanted to point out that the DEI committee is one that was established by the superintendent. It's a superintendent's committee. I don't believe it was established by like the governing board, Cindy, or any individual board. It was a superintendent committee. So just wanted to clarify that for folks.
Thank
Okay.
you for clarification.
He created that because community members came forward and wanted something. So he put the committee together, and they're working to try to get the 3 individual boards. Originally, they came to the governing board thinking the governing board could document what, or, you know, dictate what happens at all 3 levels. It's been explained to them that that can't happen. So if they come up with something that they want to present and ask for a vote on, they will do that at the individual boards. Just for comment on the other, it was told by legal that that would have just been an advisory anyway. It wasn't something that, you know, the board would be held to, which we've also heard that on the other side. The DEI is basically, even if, you know, the school board passed this resolution, whatever it ends up being, it doesn't transfer to the next governing board. It's because it's a resolution, it's not policy. So I think that, you know, both of them have been brought forward because there are community members that are concerned on both sides. And I do think that this petition warrant, although it was not crafted well, I think it was in response to something that all of a sudden started being talked about and wasn't on an agenda originally. And I think people just reacted emotionally to it. So it is going to be an interesting scenario going forward to see where we go with these 2.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Cindy, I'm totally lost here. What's behind all this? Have we got a problem that I don't know about?
Well, no, I mean, the original thought was they wanted to have it looked at. They wanted to hire a consultant to come in and tell us if we were following diversity, equity, and initiatives. And that's how this whole thing got started. We had a group of about 10 or 15 people that came to one of the SAU governing boards as a public input. It was not on the agenda. And that's kind of what started and ignited this. And it has just kind of taken over. And, you know, from the board's perspective, it's not really the time. Like we're chilling with COVID, and it's not a great time for our administration to be spending time, but Andy feels that he needs to listen because the community has come forward and asked to be heard. So right now there is there is nothing in writing that's proven to anybody that there's a big issue, but this is a hot topic. So.
Okay.
Okay, so we, as a budget committee, are not going to take a position on it, and that would conclude our agenda items at this point. I did have a note on there about annual meeting information. The annual meeting itself is going to be pushed out. We don't have a date yet. I think the warrant itself needs to be posted with a date and location that our moderator will then come in and cancel and maybe, stipulate an alternate date. Kelly, is that how that works? Like
No, we voted on a date last night.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Yes. We voted for April 10th at 10 a.m. start. And
is that a Saturday?
It is. And then April 17th as a backup if the weather's bad or rain. And we did ask the moderator at what point we would have to cancel. And he said technically he could cancel up to 2 hours before because we're, concerned mainly about the weather.
Okay, because it was intended to be outside.
It is just like the town of Hollis's meeting last year, which was outside. And an opportunity for the public to go to the mic is what we hope.
I'm not sure what other procedures for the meeting you wanted to talk, that you might have talked about. Like, sometimes we do provide some information and presentations.
They haven't decided yet because they're wondering if the presentation can be seen on a screen or if we got one of the new inflatable screens or something, the hope would be that this would simulate the indoor meeting as close as possible. But be outside. So the logistics are not done yet, but we did choose a date.
Okay, that's great. I hadn't heard that.
And Darlene, I just need to clarify something about the forms that need to be signed.
Yes. Mhm.
Because they changed the date of the meeting and the town's meeting is going to be different as well. That buys us some more time for the drop dead date that I have to post. So you guys are off the hook to scramble to sign
Okay.
because as Cindy mentioned, there are still a couple of issues that need to be resolved and those will be resolved on Wednesday. And then I will probably be sending out next Friday the forms that need to be signed by both the school board and the budget committee.
And those will be sent electronically through DocuSign.
Yes.
So we'll get an
yes.
email and it'll invite you to electronically sign the document. Once you start the process, the document rolls up and you can look through the entire document before signing, things like that. It's a very easy process, works really well.
Yes.
But so then that means it also bought you some time on the town report side because they're not printing them yet and things like that.
Yes.
Great.
Well, it did in Hollis. I'm not positive about
Brookline, because
so-
Brookline has
Right.
the school district will be on election day. But I think I
Yes,
sent
yes.
you our report information. Like
Yep.
that.
Oh, that's all been submitted. The only holdup for Brookline is the co-op. So it may end up showing up as draft instead of the final, but I haven't got that confirmation yet.
Okay.
So Kelly, if we don't have an email from you a week from Friday, we should reach out to you or Darlene?
Sure, but I can almost guarantee you're gonna get
Okay.
one.
So if we don't get it, technologically speaking, I sometimes drop the ball here, so I just want to be sure. So by next weekend, I should have it.
Mhm.
Yes, you
Okay.
definitely should. And if something comes up that you're not gonna get it, I'll let everyone know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I'll just say that since we are pushed out till April, that means we can have a March meeting and of our own. And what I would like to do at that meeting, by then we'll know if we're going to be able to present information or not. And so if not, I would hope by then I'll have maybe some guidance on some of the legislation and be able to reevaluate some of the impacts that we talked about at the public hearing, but have the annual deck complete. And we can decide as a budget committee if we want to move forward with that deck of information or put together information in a little bit different way that can be loaded to the website for people to reference. Just kind of think a little bit about the best way of sharing what's going to be really important information about not only the budget and the articles, but also about the petition articles. I do have a lot of information on the tax cap. That one in particular, I will ask Drew Mason to, if we're going to have speaking time, I will ask for time to speak in opposition to that as a representative of the budget committee. But if not, I'd like to talk through with you all the best information to put forward, just as information that's out there for people to understand, because what I'm always particularly concerned about is misinformation. And I'd much rather have people, if they hear information, I'd much rather have them come back, go to the SAU website, be able to pull up our decks, our meeting minutes, our information, even, come and speak at public input, send us questions to ask if the information they've been handed or they've heard about is accurate and correct. I would much rather have people do that or have information available to be able to address, questions and things like that might come up. So we'll just kind of keep that in mind, and we have all of March to think about that.
So will that be March 25th? Will
That's
that be
the
the
fourth
fourth?
week. Mhm.
Okay.
We could push it back to the third week just to give us a little bit more time. But then that's like,
Yeah, I don't know what our school board's doing yet, now that we've changed it. We have a lot of other stuff that doesn't have to do with the annual meeting that they would like to discuss. So it's possible we'll have one the third week, maybe the 17th, I don't know.
So I'd say either the 18th or the 25th, if we could keep those dates in mind for another meeting, that would be great. Okay, I think that covers it for now. Thank you all very much for your time, kind of getting this in this evening and addressing these things. I would think it was really important that we take positions on the articles that we took positions on. So at this point, at 7:16 p.m., I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved.
From Lauren.
Second.
Okay, from Cindy, seconded by Lauren. I'll call the roll.
You forgot the process observer readout.
Oh, did we have, okay, Brian, you can be the process observer tonight. How did we do?
Well, I was scheduled to be the process observer for February anyway.
Okay.
In actuality, it said we're adjourning at 7:15 and it is 7:16. That's pretty on the nose.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we have a motion to adjourn on the floor. Raul,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and Darlene votes yes. Thank you all very much.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much. Have a good evening. Take care.